Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the BC Refugee Hub's webinar entitled Employment Supports and Resources for Refugee Claimants. My name is Farah Kotadia, Program Director at AMSA, and I will be guiding us through today's event. We are all here at the ISS of BC Welcome Centre in Vancouver. The BC Refugee Hub would like to thank AMSA for hosting this webinar and providing technical support for this online session. The BC Refugee Hub would like to gratefully acknowledge the financial support of the Province of British Columbia through the Ministry of Jobs, Trade and Technology. The BC Refugee Hub is funded by the Province of British Columbia and administered by the Immigrant Services Society of BC, or ISS of BC. This webinar topic has been informed by a feedback survey conducted with the settlement and integration sector by the BC Refugee Hub. Many survey respondents expressed a need for training with resources and information on supporting refugees and refugee claimants for their employment journey here in Canada. Many also express the need for regular trainings like this for staff as ongoing professional development. This webinar is suitable for those working in frontline positions, coordinators and managers at settlement service provider agencies, as well as community stakeholders who work with and support refugees and refugee claimants from the time they come to BC, during their claim process, when a claim decision is received, and who are or become permanent residents. The webinar today will cover an introduction to BC CIS Stream B employment programs and services refugee claimants are eligible to access. We will also learn about work permit applications and processing times, employment resources, key challenges of employment for claimants, and along with best practices and case studies on what has been working well. We will start with Bahar Tahiri, project consultant from the BC Refugee Hub, who will give us an update on recent resources posted on the Hub, as well as upcoming training events. After that, Alexandra Dolly, coordinator of the Refugee Settlement and Integration Program for Mosaic, will give us an introduction to BC CIS Stream B employment services, followed by a presentation from Dennis Juarez, refugee claimant specialist from Options Community Services Society, on employment programs, services, and resources for refugee claimants, along with best practices and case studies. So first up, we have Bahar Tahiri from the BC Refugee Hub, providing us with a short update on the Hub's upcoming trainings and resources that have been recently released. Bahar.
Hi everyone, thank you for joining us today. I just want to go through a couple of things quickly. The BC Refugee Hub has released a document, which is an inventory of all BC CIS funded organizations in the Lower Mainland. So BC CIS is BC Settlement and Integration Services, Stream A and B, Services for Refugee Claimants. BC CIS Stream A and B funding is provided by the Province of British Columbia, Ministry of Jobs, Trade and Technology. The inventory outlines settlement and integration services and programs available to refugee claimants in Metro Vancouver, Fraser Valley, and Vancouver Island to help support referrals between organizations. The inventory also has a list of free and low-cost English classes that refugee claimants can access. So that can be found under publications on the BC Refugee Hub, or you can just go to the search function and put in BC CIS and it'll pop up. We've also posted the webinar materials, which is the video and the PowerPoint deck from our February 11th webinar, which was titled How to Support Refugees and Refugee Claimants Facing Domestic Violence. That can be found under Training on the Hub. And I just wanted to bring to your attention a couple of trainings that are coming up. This week on Thursday, March 7th, we have the Primary and Mental Health Care for Refugee Claimants webinar. We have 3 speakers from SOS VAST and a doctor, a primary care doctor, that will speak about primary health care for refugee claimants. And on March 12th, we have LGBTQ Refugees and Refugee Claimant Forum, which will be held at the Hilton Metrotown in Burnaby. The registration forms for both of these are listed on the hub, and we do have space for both if you're interested. And it's for anyone working with refugee claimants that's interested in learning more. They're all professional development opportunities. That's it for me. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Bahar. So if you have any questions regarding the Hub publications and resources, or questions on any of the upcoming events, you can email Bahar directly at refugeehub@issbc.org. And now I would like to introduce Alexandra Dolly from Mosaic, who will give us an introduction to BC SIS Stream B employment programs and services. Welcome, Alexandra.
Thank you very much. So hello, everyone. My name is Alexandra, and I am the coordinator of Refugee Settlement and Integration Program at Mosaic Settlement Agency. It's my pleasure to be co-presenting today with Dennis and to introduce Stream B employment services. So thank you, Bahar, BC Refugee Hub, and AMSA for the invitation, as well as to everybody participating today. Mosaic's employment services for refugee claimants spans across Metro Vancouver and the Fraser Valley, but I do recognize that many people participating in this webinar are from elsewhere in BC, so I'll aim to be concise and provide a brief overview just for 10 minutes before Dennis dives into content that will be directly applicable to all participants. Mosaic is a registered charity that has been serving immigrant, newcomer, and refugee communities in Greater Vancouver for the past 40 years. Our mission is to deliver services and engage in community building and advocacy to facilitate meaningful participation of immigrants and refugees in Canadian society. Collaboration and meaningful participation and partnerships are at the heart of what we do. In the area of employment, Mosaic has strong roots in providing employment services for refugees, including deep ties with a wide variety of employers, big and small. So although it may be new for us working to provide employment services for refugee claimants, we do have a lot of depth and experience to build and to draw upon. So Stream B is also referred to as the Refugee Settlement and Integration Program. And Mosaic is one of 2 Stream B contract holders in the province, along with ISS of BC. We each have slightly different areas of specialization and regions within the Lower Mainland that we work. So generally, the Stream B program aims to support the specific needs of refugee claimants rather than resettled refugees. So a refugee claimant is a person who has made claim for protection as a refugee. These individuals are afraid to return to their home country due to fear of danger or torture or risk of unjust persecution or treatment. Throughout the process of determination hearings, refugee claimants really work to prove that they fit the convention definition of a refugee, which you see below on your screen here, which states a person who is outside their country of origin and have a well-founded fear of danger or torture due to reasons of race, religion, nationality, membership of a particular social group, or political opinion. So what we found is historically refugee claimants struggled to find eligibility into a wide variety of programs that are offered to resettled refugees. So this could include Work BC, many one-on-one services, as well as workshops. So as well as link programs. So we're very fortunate that the BC Ministry of Jobs, Trades and Technology recognized this gap and provided funding. So thank you to our funder. So our Refugee Settlement and Integration Program has 3 key components. Wraparound settlement support for refugee claimants in the Fraser Valley, Abbotsford, Chilliwack and Mission. And this includes a full suite of pre and post hearing supports, such as navigating the claim process, referral to temporary and more permanent housing, as well as access to legal aid and basic necessities. We also offer trauma counseling and psychological supports for refugees of all groups. So this is actually the only part of the Stream B programming that has eligibility for both refugee claimants as well as refugees from other groups. And the reason is that this was considered a gap for many refugees within the Fraser Valley. So we're grateful that the ministry stepped in to provide funding for that group as well. And then, of course, the third piece is customized employment support for refugee claimants in the Fraser Valley and Metro Vancouver. And I'll be delving into this a little bit more throughout our presentation today. In 6 months, from September 2018 to February 2019, 345 individuals have accessed our Stream B services. So as I mentioned earlier, collaboration is at the heart of Mosaic's work to support newcomers, and this directly applies to our work with refugee claimants. Our Stream B programming is delivered through close partnerships with incredible organizations throughout Metro Vancouver, through Surrey, and across the Fraser Valley. For example, Inasmuch Community Society, based out of Abbotsford, provides transitional housing, Stream B initial settlement services, and customized employment support, as well as basic living support for up to 6 months for refugee claimants in the Fraser Valley. And let me tell you, they have 2 houses that I would be quite happy to be living in. Of course, Options, we have Dennis here today, so I'll let him speak more to what they do, but it's a nonprofit society and a registered charity that's provided support for community members, including newcomers and refugee claimants, for many years in Surrey. Through Stream B, they're offering immigration and initial settlement support with an employment focus for refugee claimants in Surrey. We also have Kinbrace Ready Tours, where refugee claimants can attend a full tour at the Immigration and Refugee Board, the IRB, with the opportunity to ask questions and to become more familiar with the hearing process. So this program is supported by our Stream B funding. Also, Abbotsford Community Services, based out of Abbotsford, as you can probably guess, provides immigration and initial settlement support with a focus on customized employment services for refugee claimants. They're also our partners in providing the trauma services that I mentioned earlier. And you'll see on the bottom there that there's the multi-agency partnership logo. Now, it does look very similar to the BC multi-agency partnership, but did you know that there's also a multi-agency partnership in the Fraser Valley? This was developed through our Stream B funding and is developed and co-chaired by Mosaic and Abbotsford Community Services. We now have 20 different member organizations participating, and we meet on a monthly basis at various locations throughout the Fraser Valley. Of course, one of the topics that we'll be addressing is employment challenges for refugee claimants in that region. So let's talk a little bit more about customized employment supports for refugee claimants. So firstly, there's orientation. This includes information on employment-related supports relevant to individuals' work and educational experiences. So this includes things such as assistance in resume writing, labor market exploration, job interview skills, preparation and practice. And we also offer certification trainings such as Food Safe Level 1 and First Aid Level 1, free of charge to refugee claimants. And this is possible throughout Surrey, Vancouver, and Abbotsford. And we have participations from different refugee claimants that are from areas like Chilliwack, Langley, and different parts of Metro Vancouver. So it's a fantastic opportunity for refugee claimants to enhance their resume and their employability. 2 other areas that we work to support refugee claimants, firstly, is mentorship. So this includes connecting refugee claimants with mentors in relevant occupations. So we recognize that often newcomers will take on survival jobs that are just basically paying their living costs. But we also work to support people to start working towards their goals. And a key piece of this puzzle is through mentorship. Also, we work through employee-employer relations. So we do this both on a one-on-one and a group basis. For example, this month, there's 2 events at the Mosaic Surrey office, one in partnership with Options, where we're welcoming employers to share what they're looking for in new employees, with the opportunity for the second training for even on-the-spot interviews. Of course, getting a job is just one piece. We also work to support employers and refugee claimants for job maintenance. And this includes training such as Canadian culture in the workplace, as well as job maintenance considerations. Now, I'd like to share a quick story of someone's journey to employment in Abbotsford through Stream B services. So I've changed the names and some of the details to protect their confidentiality. But let's consider the story of Jack and Sylvia. Sylvia and Jack were young professionals living in the Middle East. She was an activist and he was in business. She was targeted and had to flee for her life with her husband. They left behind their home, their large families, and everything that they knew to find safety. They flew to Europe and then on to a city in the USA. Early one morning, they caught a bus to Blaine, Washington, and together they crawled through the weeds and the undergrowth, irregularly crossing the border into Canada. They walked into Vancouver and they spent the rest of the night in the rain in the Stanley Park. Now, the next day, they got in touch with a settlement agency in Vancouver who connected them with an agency that provides transition housing for refugee claimants. They were met by volunteers from the transition house. They had little English, a few dollars, and essentially only the clothes on their back. But through Stream B funded staff, they had English tutors, and they received immediate settlement and integration support. The agency worked with them to get their work permits and social assistance. And through customized employment support, they received support in preparing their applications, meeting with potential employers, and they were both able to find work. So Jack started out on a production line in a factory and has since been promoted into the finance department, where his true passion lied back home. He's now in the process of working towards his CPA to become an accountant. Sylvia found employment making clothes for a local company, and the family has since become permanent residents. They have many friends, a small family, and it's safe to say they've become quite well integrated into the community, even supporting other newcomers settling in. So I share that story before I share the statistic because it's so easy to reduce people to a number. But it is important to note that 187 refugee claimants have received customized employment supports through our Stream B services, and 80+ participants have since obtained employment. And we really look forward to continuing these services and working with our partners throughout this region. So that's all I have to say for now. I hope that that was a basic introduction into our Stream B services. And please do not hesitate to email me if you'd like to connect, if you'd like to join the Fraser Valley Map, or if there's any other way that we can support your clients, refugee claimants, or your staff in preparing them for the world of employment. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alexandra. Really appreciate that. And you're right, it's so important to hear about the success stories so that we don't just reduce people to numbers. So thank you very much for sharing that. If you have any questions for Alexandra, please do enter them into the question box or send an email to events@amsa.org. We will be having a Q&A session after the next presentation. So I would now like to introduce Dennis Juarez from Options Community Services Society, who will be presenting on employment programs, services, and resources for refugee claimants, along with best practices and case studies. Welcome, Dennis.
Thank you. I really appreciate the invitation from Bahar from the BC Refugee Hub, and also the collaboration between Mosaic, AMSA, and Options. Thank you, Alexandra Dolly, from the wonderful introduction for the Stream B services provided in Metro Vancouver and Fraser Valley. And I would like also to talk a little bit about what Options Community Services Society is. And so our vision is to inspire hope and belonging for all. Our mission is to unite in purpose of helping people to help themselves and promoting safe, healthy, and vibrant communities. And we offer services in Surrey, White Rock, Delta, and Langley. So I was asked by Bahar to talk a little bit more about the employment support and resources for refugee claimants. So our agenda for today will be a case study about a single mom, key barriers and challenges that she presented, also the processes that I took in order to help her, best practices and resources, and at the end we will talk about the open work permit process. So just to keep her information confidential, I have changed the client's name to Mary. So I will just read her story. My name is Mary. I am a single mom with 2 school-age kids, and we are from Nigeria. I am looking for work, but do not have a work permit. I arrived on November 17, 2018. I have a Bachelor of Marketing and Communications. I worked as a journalist and I was a media coordinator back in Nigeria. I need any type of job. My native language is English. I am not receiving any financial support and I cannot stay at the shelter. Legal aid assigned me a lawyer and I want to enroll my kids to school. Please help me. I am desperate. So on a daily basis, people are desperate when they come to settlement workers or to any other agency who support refugee claimants. And we notice that they have suffered a lot by coming to Canada. And as you can see here, the key barriers and challenges, mostly for all the refugee claimants, will vary depending on their culture, their education, and also their native language. But as we can see here, Mary's barriers and challenges, it's definitely not language because as she mentioned before, her native language is English. But we can also see that sometimes the services are, are really far away and it's difficult for people who might not even be receiving income assistance or who are not working to get to the support that they need. And also getting their first job and maintaining that job is really difficult for them. They have financial worries, mental health. Some of them have trauma, their lack of childcare, anxiety from immigration process, or the uncertainty if they will be accepted as convention refugee or protected person. And also they don't know the employment standards. Accessing employment services is quite challenging for them. Lack of Canadian workplace culture, the weather, and this is actually very important, not only because of the weather that we have here in Vancouver, but also the climate inside some warehouse or processing companies where the clients tend to work. Sometimes they work in a really cold environment that might be -3 degrees, and that's really challenging for someone who comes from a country that their climate or their weather might be 45 degrees. And also cultural shock, um, no housing, lack of Canadian work references, they don't know how or where to look for work, no job connections, no networking, lack of Canadian style resume, and lack of knowledge of labor market. So I would like to start, and this is the process that I go with the clients or the steps that I take with the clients when they come to the office for the first time. So we start with an assessment, and that's when I find out where to refer them, if it's internally or externally. We also do the assessment if they actually need income assistance, and we explain them about the rights and their responsibilities. We enroll them in the pre-employment workshop. I help them in the one-on-one with the resume writing, and we also have short trainings. We connect them with employers, volunteer opportunities, mentorship, and we also discuss about the informational interview. We have one-on-one interview preparation, job fairs, and we also connect our clients with work supplies. So now discussing the first step, which is the assessment and referral. So basically we do the assessment to find out client's needs and to learn where to refer him or her. Obviously, the client cannot start working if she does not have the arrival settlement needs met and accomplished. So these are some good questions or things to do that maybe you can do with your clients. It's always good to ask them about their previous work experience and ask them, are you willing to change careers? And also explain that the skills are transferable. And it's also good to explore new options and good to start working to get a Canadian work experience references, and also to network. Ask them to show you their resume or to email you their resume. Identify if the client is low or has high or is a high skill claimant by asking their education and their work experience. Also ask them if they have any family here in BC. And at the end, that's when you know where to refer the client. So this is the first form that I fill out with the clients. And as you can see with Mary's single mom story, she mentioned that she already has a legal aid. She also has a lawyer. And so her needs basically are to open a bank account, income assistance, register her to the Radiator, housing, register the school, register the kids for school, a library card, connect her with the food bank, leisure access program, and also Rec for Kids, which is organization that provides bicycle for kids. Help her with the work permit if she does not have one, and refer her to one-on-one resume writing or to the workshop. And this is the second assessment that I personally do. And it's also good to ask their English level, know and ask them if they know where to look for work, if they have a Canadian style resume, if they have computer skills, or if they have a BC driver's license or a home country driver's license, their years of experience, meaning their work experience, when did they move to Canada, their education background, what is their desired job, or if they're actually already working, what is their current job, and if they have ever attended a job fair. And actually, I like asking this question because some claimants, job fairs do not exist in their home country. So when you invite them to a job fair, they might be asking, what is that? Right? So it's also good to explain what it is. And also, I asked them if they know the benefits of volunteering, of networking, or having a mentor, and if they're looking for a part-time, full-time job, and if they have a childcare, which obviously in this case with Mary, she doesn't. And I also ask for the top 5 skills or their strengths, the challenges that I see, and if the client is ready to work. So once I have done that, now I know a little bit more about Mary. And in this case, so I move on to step number 2. So she mentioned that she does not have income assistance. So it could be either we help her on site, or we refer her to an outreach worker from the Ministry of Social Development and Poverty Reduction. But I make sure that she knows her rights and responsibilities on being on income assistance. So it's good to explain to the clients that income assistance is not permanent, it's just temporary. And also their obligations. So one of their obligations, it is actually to look for work. So I see it as, and I tell the clients that they could see that income as a paid job just to look for work. And it's also good to explain what will happen if they do not comply with their employment plan, meaning that if they refuse a job offer or resign or does not make himself employable, their check might be placed on hold. And also, it's good to explain them how to fill out the monthly report, especially when they start working. I've noticed some clients that, everyone has deductions, for example, CPP, and also the employment insurance. And there's a section in the employment form which asks for those information, and the clients tend to put those deductions in the employment form or the monthly report as if it is income, when it's not. Also, one of the good practices that Alexandra Dali mentioned is the pre-employment workshop. So at Options, we have created the Employment Connections Cafe for refugee claimants, in which basically it is, as Alexandra mentioned, we have different topics such as Canadian workplace culture, job search, networking, volunteering, informational interviews, interview skills, resume writing, LinkedIn, online applications, and labor market. So this is a good practice. So for example, if you are in Victoria or somewhere in Prince George, and maybe you don't have probably a lot of clients, but maybe you can discuss on a one-on-one basis with the clients. But for example, if you have maybe 5 clients in a week, you can just sort of, instead of repeating all over again the information, you can just invite those 5 clients and discuss the topics that I just mentioned. So some tips to discuss is also talk about the importance of informational interviews. And this is mostly for the high skilled professionals because they can connect, for example, if someone was a banker or work in a bank back home, it is really difficult to get in the financial or banking field if you don't have connections here in Canada. So I always tell them to do an informational interview, which is basically not asking for job, but it's mostly to ask for information about the services the bank offers or the products they offer, or for example, asking more information about the company and getting to know more the manager or the HR or human resources coordinator. And also they have at the end like an opportunity to ask maybe 1 or 2 minutes from the person's time to check their resume just to get some feedback. And that's at the end. I've noticed that some employers give really good feedback to claimants, and they end up getting either a referral to another organization or even a job in the same company. So navigate with them the job search websites such as Indeed, Glassdoor, Monster, or Work BC. Not just tell them, oh, there's a website called Indeed. Just go and Google it and you'll be able to find jobs there. Actually go to indeed.ca and navigate the website with the client, because some of them, they don't even have probably computer skills, or they don't know what Indeed is. And also, if they apply to a position, tell them to follow up with the employer, either calling or emailing the employer. And a good practice that I've noticed is also have job postings of current positions available in the area and explain if they have 70% of the skills needed for that position that they should actually apply. But if they have, for example, 20 or 30% of the skills, don't bother in applying. So also I tell them in this workshop that they could do a list or maybe just write down 5 names of the companies or agencies where they would like to work, and then call, email, or visit the company. So for example, if you want to work in the settlement industry, you can do an informational interview, let's say with Alexandra, and you can just ask whenever there's an opportunity, or she will even remember you, or she will even remember the client or the person that she spoke to. So once she see her resume, she will remember. Alexandra will say, oh, I remember this person came to the informational interview. So you see, there's a new connection that now your client has made a connection with Alexandra from Mosaic. So now I the fourth step is the resume writing. So this is we also discussed this, but it's very basic on the during the workshop. But then I schedule a one-on-one appointment with my client. So basically is I do have resume templates. So that's my actually tip, that you can have different templates that you can just probably download them from Google in different fields. So for example, in the financial field, general labor, such as construction, warehouse, production, and processing. So once the client comes to your office, you can just explain how to do a resume. If they have computer skills, you can just send them those templates to them, and they will have that as a homework that they can do their own resume at home. And once they have it done, they can email it to you. So every time you apply for a different job, you have to tailor your resume. So if the claimant wants to apply for 30 positions, you know the claimant will come 30 times to your office to get assistance to tailor that resume. But if you explain them how to do the resume, they can do their resume at home, and you can just check the resume. And I just have one question here to Alexandra Dolly. She's the coordinator of the Refugee Settlement and Integration Program for Mosaic. What have you noticed when people apply to positions probably available at Mosaic? Have you seen any differences or some recommendations that you will probably have for settlement agencies or for claimants itself?
Great question, Dennis. I think that you've touched on a lot of the important pieces, like making sure you've tailored your resume and that you're only applying for jobs that you meet at least 70% of the requirements in the job posting. Another important piece that I'd recommend is being aware of how a client or advising a client to properly draft the professional email. So being aware of somebody's email that they're sending their application from. Is it butterfly101@hotmail.com or is it their name at gmail.com? Also being aware of the subject line. Are they going to indicate that it's their application or is it just hi in the subject line? Also looking at the body. So is it addressed to the right person? Have they identified the correct job posting that they're applying for? Because you can have a perfect cover letter and a perfect resume, but if that application email falls short, then you aren't even going to make it to the stage that someone necessarily gives serious thought to your resume. Thanks, Dennis.
Okay, thank you, Alexandra. So now we have here just like a simple sample or template of a resume. And so yeah, so this is the heading, which I call it, which you have to tell your clients that they should write down their name, address, email, LinkedIn account if they have, and their phone number. And also the highlights of the skills or the strengths. And some people, they even like writing objectives as well. So in the second section, you will see also the work experience. So this has to be from the latest. So for example, if in this case it says that I was a maintenance engineer in California in the United States. So they have to disclose actually in what city and country they work, and not only mention that they work for Airside as a maintenance engineer. And if they can also explain a little bit of what they did. For example, like the duties. And it's also good to use verb or action verbs, for example, as managed, ensured, prepared. And if they're not currently working there, they have to be in the past tense. And the last and third section is the education. So they have to mention if they have any bachelor degree or PhD or any master's degree, where, as I said before, in what city and country, and in what year they graduated from that program. And also at the end, I've noticed that some clients have actually their references in their resume. They write down the contact name, phone number, and email, which this is wrong. So you should just tell your clients, or if you're helping them, just tell them to write references available upon request. So now moving on to the fifth step that we do at Options, a partner also with Mosaic, is the short training, which this include besides the pre-employment workshop, it's also computer training. So if you have any computer classes that you can recommend to your client, if they don't have computer skills, that will be wonderful. And also, because some people, they don't even know how to turn on a computer, how to use a mouse. So that's basic knowledge. And if they can learn also about Microsoft Excel, Word, Outlook, PowerPoint, Notepad, Paint, and we are, as Alexandra mentioned, we have been offering first aid training and food safe training just for refugee claimants, and this is for free. And also, there's an online training, and some are free and some are paid. It's also Coursera that clients can go and register themselves to different type of trainings, for example, customer service or leadership skills or financial and banking training. So now discussing about building connections. So it's, if you're new in Canada and you don't have your network list, it will actually be difficult to get a good job for a professional refugee claimant. So this is actually to connect with employers, to request informational interviews, request volunteer opportunities, or mentorship opportunities. So if your claimants want to volunteer or they want to network a little bit more, and actually you can also discuss with your client that volunteering is unpaid. And it's also a good opportunity for them to network, to learn or enhance their current or previous skills, to make new friends. So these are some resources where you can send your clients or navigate with them. It's govolunteer.ca. And actually, AMSA, they always have volunteer posting opportunities in their website, which you can also tell your clients. And meetup.com, it's actually a good tool for clients to make new friends, or for example, if they want to go for English classes, and it's free. And also, I've noticed that I had some clients that they were working before, probably in Syria as a consulate, and they want to work in the same helping industry, and they want to work in the settlement field. For example, some agencies always have volunteer opportunities such as Mosaic and options as well. Or you can just send your claimant to the library, Red Cross, or any recreation center, and sometimes even churches from the local area. And some of the tips that I would like to discuss today is if you have a refugee claimant in front of you, and maybe you're just a settlement worker, and it's not part of your duties to help your client to look for work, but if you want to do that extra mile and actually, help a little bit more, you can actually contact employers, and you can tell them, I have a newcomer and he's my client, and he used to be, let's say, for example, work in a production area, and he would like to work in a warehouse, a manufacturing company. Are you hiring right now, or are you really willing to hire this person? You will actually be amazed how employers are very open to actually at least provide an interview to try to connect or try to learn more about the refugee claimant. And so this is actually a good practice that I have learned. And also, if you have, like, for example, a claimant that is actually working already, let's say in housekeeping, ask the refugee claimants, are they hiring in that company? Do you know? So that way, if they're hiring, you can just tell the rest of your clients that such and such company are actually hiring as well. And you can tell your clients to ask for people businesses cards every time they go to an informational interview, mentorship, volunteering opportunity, or just an employment interview, because it's also good to follow up. Or even if they go to a hiring event or networking event, it's good to ask for their business cards. So for example, if I always tell the clients when I invite them to a job fair, they tell me, oh, but why will I go to a job fair if I don't have a resume, or if I don't have, let's say, for example, a work permit? And I tell them, yes, you might not be able to work right away if they offer you an opportunity, but at least you can go there and connect with the employer. just to network and get that business card and actually learn more about the company. So once you get your work permit, you remember that you have your business card and you can just follow up or contact the employer. So also, I always tell the clients, carry your resume with you and request an informational interview. And as I said before, it is not to ask for work, but to ask information. And the seventh step is the interview preparation. So if you have noticed, by now the client has gained a lot of information and a lot of skills regarding workplace culture and job search, and they already have a resume and they are actually ready to start applying. So in this, in the one-on-one interview preparation and also in the pre-employment workshop, I always tell the clients to practice, tell me about yourself. So you can also tell your clients to use the PAUSE method, which is personal, academic, work experience, and skills. So for example, tell your clients, because I've noticed that some clients, and actually we did this practice in the Employment Connections Cafe, and I told the client, can you, I'll just be like the employer, and we just did like a sort of role play. And the client, this particular client, the single mom, she said, oh, well, I'm a single mom. I have 2 kids. And she started mentioning her work experience as a journalist in Nigeria and her skills. So, so when she finished talking, I told her, oh, um, so if you start working, who's going to take care of your kids? So you see, she's just by mentioning that, she's putting some barriers in the interview. So I always tell the clients, don't mention personal things, even though it's as personal, but it's more things like recreational things that you do, let's say on a weekend, like you might like painting or singing or playing an instrument, and but not saying, oh, I have to take care of my kids or my family or my husband is sick. So also, you can tell your clients to research more about the company they are applying for. So for example, they can just, for example, if they want to work at Van City, they can just go to Van City's website, read about their mission, vision, objectives, if they won any award, the differences between a credit union and a bank, also the services and products Van City offers to people. And so I always tell the clients to actually read and learn about this, because actually myself, I went to an interview at Van City and I was asked these questions. I was asked, for example, if I knew what the credit union was, or what was the difference between a bank, let's say RBC, and Van City. So just tell the clients that actually Van City is not making actually profit, and the money that they earn is actually to go back to the community to help in donations or supporting other community agencies. So that's a good practice that I always tell my clients that they should do. And that's actually a good practice that you can tell your clients as well. So also mention your clients the different types of interviews. Nowadays, it's not only like before that you just drop off your resume and you smile to the manager, and if you have that connection, they will call you for an interview. Now it's a little bit different. If you notice, you get a phone interview, and if they really like you, they can also call you for a video interview or a one-on-one interview. And it could be one or more interviews actually. So it could be a group interview or a one-on-one. And if it's on the one-on-one, it could be 2 to 4 or more interviewers. So that could be actually quite frightening for newcomers, because probably back home, they don't have these methods of interviews. So it's actually good to tell them, and to also tell them, if they go to their first interview and they don't get the job, tell them not to feel overwhelmed or that they did a bad job, or or to feel depressed, just tell your clients that this is a practice to look at it at a practice. So when they go to a second, third interview, or when they apply somewhere else, they will be ready to answer all the questions the employer has to ask. And now discussing about the step number 8. Once the client is prepared for interview, so I invite them to our job fairs or hiring events, and I also look for hiring events that are going on in the community. So as Alexandra mentioned, Mosaic always has hiring events, and some practices that you can do is actually stay tuned with WorkBC's hiring events, because they are always having job fairs basically almost every month. And you can actually ask or call employment agencies to add your email address to their mailing list. So once they have employment opportunities or job fairs coming up, you will find out, because you will be either in their contact list and you will be receiving those emails or job postings. And also, you can invite your clients to job fairs or email them job fairs information as well. So what I have done is I have created, with my client's permission, a mailing list, which I email them actually information such as job fairs that are coming up in Surrey, Delta, or Langley, or even in Vancouver. So that's a good practice that you can do as well. So I was asked also by Bahar to talk about the differences between the high skilled and low skilled professionals. So as you can see here in this chart, the challenges that high skilled professionals have is lack of networking. Also, a challenge is finding a job in their field or their previous field and not willing to change careers. And sometimes I have heard from my clients that the employers tell them that they are overqualified. And but their strengths for the high skilled professionals is that it is easy for them to build their network, and they can get volunteering and mentorship opportunities, and they can get entry-level positions, and they can just get experience and grow within the company. And you can see the differences between the low-skilled refugee clients is that their challenges is the number one is the language barrier, and also that they're just getting minimum wage, just getting also survival jobs, and the cold environments at work, as I mentioned before. But the strength is that it is actually easy for them to get labor work such as production, manufacturing, processing food companies, construction, housekeeping as well. And they are actually ready to work because they want, as Mary said in her story, that she wants to work, it doesn't matter where, but she wants to start working. And they also have created network um, within their communities. So for example, I have noticed that some clients have a client maybe from Colombia that is working in construction, and then that client has another friend that is a refugee claimant and refers that client to the same company as well. So that's how clients are getting jobs as well. And so now also discussing about the best practices. What I have done in the past is that I take the refugee claimants to a tour at the work site. So for example, we took some refugee claimants to Langley to a food processing company, and they actually learn from the manager and from employees about the company's workplace culture, salaries, benefits, duties, and the skills needed for the job. And I have also taken clients also to Cloverdale, and they have the opportunity to discuss and ask questions to the employers, get interviewed, and apply for some positions. And I have had actually clients hired right on the spot as well. And as I mentioned before, create a mailing list, send flyers and job postings to clients, and and practice with the client, do a mock interview. So this is actually something good to practice with the client before an interview, and invite employer or a company to your agency. So back in options, we call these events a meet employer event. With one of my coworkers, she's always contacting employers in the industry in Surrey, Delta, and White Rock, and she invites them to come to our office to talk about their company, the positions they have, the skills needed, and they also interview right in the spot and match a client to a mentor. As Alexandra mentioned, some clients, especially the high skilled clients, come to our doors and they don't have probably a good English level and they're just doing survival jobs. I have actually a lot of clients who used to work back home in Afghanistan or in Syria or Lebanon, working in an embassy or in a consulate, and you can see that they have master degrees, PhDs, and years and experience. And it is so sad to see someone who spends so much time and so much money and resources in school to work in a construction site. And I'm not saying that it's a bad job, but that person is missing out from his skills and also from opportunities to be working in an agency. For example, as Mosaic, start working as a settlement worker, and at the end they could be working as a coordinator or move on from one agency to another. And so it's also good to invite clients to employment workshops and hiring events, and also tell clients to go. For example, if there's a mall close by or an outlet that they can just go to the food court or to each store to see if they have like some hiring signage, or saying that they are needing someone. They can just go to the restaurant or they can just go to the store and actually drop their resume there. So, so this is what I wanted to talk about, the employment pieces. And so now I'm going to move on to the open work permit process. So, so there's some new updates from IRCC. And one of the updates is that refugee claimants can now apply for a work permit, study permit, or both by checking a box in the Schedule 12. This is the form called Additional Information Refugee Claimants Inside Canada. So this can be filled out by their lawyers or at CVSA as well. Once the claimant, let's say, goes to the border and requests for a refugee process. So since October 2018, last year, IRCC is using the information collected as part of the refugee claim process to automatically submit a work permit and or a study permit application for refugee claimants who are eligible and who decides to get one. So this is the form that I mentioned before. This is the Schedule 12, the additional information refugee claimants inside Canada. So in the Schedule 12 form, it provides a question. There's a section that asks whether the participant or the claimant wants to apply for a work permit, study permit, or both. Actually, they can apply for both study work permit as well. And this is question number 10. So this is the form, and this is the form IMM0008. And you can see in the highlighted red rectangle, that's the question. And this is how claimants um, will see this section. And I've noticed actually, because there's a lot of forms that refugee claimants fill out, and they tend to forget that they actually check one of the boxes. And when they come to my office, I ask them if they actually already applied for the work permit using this form. And some of them say, I don't know, or confidently say, yes, I did. So it's always good to ask the refugee claimant before submitting a new application. So the next steps in the open work permit application is if the client actually checked the boxes for the work permit, study permit, or both, the application form for this permit is automatically generated. There is no need to submit a separate application form. The automatic application will be generated after their immigration medical examination has been completed by an IRCC approved physician. So as you can see, or you have already probably encountered these situations, refugee claimants who are citizens of the DCO, meaning designated country of origin, must continue to wait 6 months from the date of their claim before they can submit an application for a work permit. So these are the timelines that takes for a refugee claimant to receive actually a work permit. And you can see the updated information at IRCC's website. And it will always vary from day to day or week to week. And right now, I believe this is 1 week old. And if it is a renewal, or if you have done an open work permit for the first time, and if you did it online, it will take up to 83 days. So I mentioned up to 83 days because I have noticed that some open work permits have been approved in 3 days or 2 weeks since the application has been sent. But it can take up to 83 days. And also, it is free for refugee claimants. So if they are applying for the first time or renewing their open work permit for the second or third time, it is free. And also the immigration medical exam, it is free if they take the refugee protection claimant document to the doctor. But if your claimant has been denied or he is appealing, meaning the claimant went to the hearing and he was not found a convention refugee or a protected person, there will be a fee involved. So if the refugee claimant applies online, the fee will be $255. And if it is done by paper, it will be $155. And I've noticed in some cases when refugee claimants or denied or appealed refugee claimants apply for the work permit online and they pay $255 and they pay with their own debit or credit card, sometimes IRCC reimburses the $100, which is for the open permit holder fee. And you have to tell your clients that they have to notify IRCC of any changes, and not only IRCC, but also CVSA and the IRB, and also the Ministry of Social Development and Poverty Reduction, with such information such as change of address, change of marital status, change of name, change of email address or phone number. So if the lawyer or the CVSA officer helped the client fill out these forms, and if the client provided an email address, the IRCC will be communicating with the client by email address. But if the client did not provide an email address, the client will be receiving a paper letter. And this is just a sample letter. I don't know if you are able to see it on your screen. But when the refugee claimant actually checks the box from the question number 10, which asks if the client wants to get an open work permit and a study permit, you can see there on the remarks that says, please note, it says a work permit and study permit was created on your behalf at the time your refugee claim was made. If you do not need a study permit at this time, please confirm that you want your study permit application to be withdrawn. So in this case, Mary actually checked both boxes that she wanted a work permit and a study permit as well. But as it says here in this letter, otherwise, please provide me with a letter of acceptance from the school you will be attending. So they actually need to apply at a university to get a letter of acceptance. But remember to tell your clients that if they decide to get a study permit and to go to school, that the fee will not be considered as if they are locals, but as if they are international students. So this is all the information that I wanted to share with you today. I know it's a lot of information, but if you have more questions, you can email AMSA, or you can email me directly. And on your screen, you will see my phone number, and it's better if you just send me an email. It's faster to contact me. And thank you. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask.
Great. Thank you so much, Dennis. We really appreciate all of that information you provided. It's a lot to sort through,
Yeah.
and I'm sure people have questions. So we do have time to take a few questions. Please send them to events@amsa.org, or feel free to use the question box in the webinar. So the first question we have is, can you still qualify if you are not living in Fraser Valley for Stream B services? So either one of you, Alexandra or Dennis, who would like to take that on?
So I'm not sure if I fully understand the question. Can you still qualify for Stream B services if you do not live in the Fraser Valley?
That's right.
So as I mentioned when I was introducing Stream B, there are two Stream B contract holders. One is ISS of BC and the other is Mosaic BC, or Mosaic rather. So if you were to, for example, be living, so Mosaic holds the contract for employment services for the entirety of the Stream B serving region, which would include the Fraser Valley, including Langley, up to Metro Vancouver, including Surrey. For example, if you were from Victoria or from Kelowna, unfortunately, you do not fall within the parameters of our Stream B services. But if you would like some guidance of where to refer clients or any support related to employment resources or materials for refugee claimants, do feel free to email me and we could support you with that. I hope that answers your question.
So just to follow that up with, if a client is living in Burnaby, can they access services at Options in Surrey? At Options, or yeah?
So we hold the contract for the employment piece of that. So it would be best to email me and we can set up the best way for you to access Stream B employment services. But Burnaby is considered part of the Metro Vancouver region for the purposes of Stream B.
Yes,
So,
Dennis?
so for example, Options Community Services is located in Surrey, and clients come from Vancouver, from Burnaby, from New Westminster, Delta, White Rock, Surrey, Langley, and sometimes even from Abbotsford. And we don't close their door just because they live in Vancouver. I know how difficult it is for a claimant to travel from Vancouver to Surrey, but if they're willing to take their time and money to come to our offices, we're really happy to help them. But in this case, what I do is I do help them in the first appointment, but I do refer them, for example, to our agencies. If the client lives in Abbotsford, I definitely refer the client to Abbotsford Community Services.
Okay. Yes, Alexandra?
Absolutely. And to tack on one other point I'd make is, as Dennis mentioned, we would never turn away a refugee claimant that comes to our door for services. And I guess we don't have time to get into the full scope of things, but of course there still is some Stream A service provision where refugee claimants can access some basic settlement supports.
Right.
So I would deeply encourage those people to go to a settlement agency within their region.
Okay, great. Thank you both. So our next question is, you mentioned referring clients to volunteer positions. What advice do you give refugee claimant clients on the boundaries of volunteer work so they are not being taken advantage of in for-profit businesses?
Actually, it's really funny, that question. I had the workshop actually yesterday, and one of my clients asked me the same question. And because in some countries, for example, volunteering doesn't exist. So people tend to see volunteering like, oh, I'm working for free when I should be working and getting paid. But just to give you for an example, um, if Starbucks is requesting volunteers to work at one of the restaurants, that is not considering volunteering because Starbucks is making profit of the work from the volunteer or from the refugee claimant. It doesn't matter if it's cleaning or pouring coffee, but because they're selling that coffee, they're making profit. So that will be actually considered something probably even illegal. But for example, if Starbucks, for example, we have actually a resource fair coming up next month. And for example, if Starbucks is actually recruiting volunteers for our resource fair, and if they come to help us, that it is actually considered volunteering opportunity because they are working, yes, for Starbucks, but Starbucks, it's not actually making money out of that situation. It's actually helping the community because probably they're even giving the coffee for free.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Great. Anything you wanted to add, Alexandra?
Sure. I would just point out that I appreciated Dennis
Mhm.
mentioning that there's a lot of volunteer opportunities with Mosaic.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And we do have over 300 volunteers that we
Wow.
rely upon every year at Mosaic.
Yeah.
And I wanted to point out as well that there's a full assessment and matching process that any volunteer applicant, claimant or not, would go through. So
Right.
it's really making sure that their needs are being met in that volunteering opportunity as well, and that they're really getting the skills that they were hoping to achieve
Yeah.
rather than just, going through the motions of a
Yeah.
volunteer position.
Yeah. No, I think that's important to point out as well.
Mhm.
Thank you. So we have a question here. Some clients have a difficult time finding permanent employment due to the short-term work permit. How do you help clients handle this challenge? What do you recommend?
So normally immigration or IRCC, when they give a open work permit to a refugee claimant, they give it for 1 year or 2 years.
Okay.
I've noticed that some of them could be for 6 months. But for example, if it is for 6 months, they have to be aware, like the claimant itself has to be aware to reapply or to renew their work permit maybe 2 or 3 months before it expires. So for example, if they started working and in January and they know that their work permit will expire in June, they should apply 2 months before so they can continue working with the work permit, even though if the work permit has expired, the refugee claimant can continue working in the same company as long as I said it is in the same company, the same position.
Right.
They can still continue working as long as they have applied for the work permit.
Okay.
And I know this is something that employers don't know,
Yeah.
and they get a little bit worried that they might be hiring someone without a work permit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Okay.
I don't know if that answered the question.
I think it does. No,
Yeah.
thank you for that. So we do have another question that's come in. Do you help refugee claimants in filling out forms like work permit and income assistance application? And if the answer is yes, are there any limitations? Or like, will you review their application? So what are some of the parameters around that?
So for example, Options Community Services was subcontracted by Mosaic to offer the employment services. So we do help refugee claimants with open work permit if it's for the first time or renewals. And I do it by myself, the application, or we sometimes have practicum students who are actually studying to be immigrant consultants as well.
Yeah.
So after the immigrant consultant has filled out the application, one of my colleagues or myself will review the application. And in regards to the income assistance applications, we have actually an outreach worker from the Ministry of Social Development and Poverty Reduction who comes to my office in particular once a week. She comes every Tuesday to help us with new income assistance applications and also for any other issues that might happen. For example, their check has been placed on hold, the claimants contact us, and we just contact directly the ministry worker, and we help the client right away, basically. And we also have, like every 2 months, we invite one of the ministry workers to our office to talk about the rights and responsibilities that refugee claimants have while being on income assistance. So if the case is there's no limitations in my end,
Okay.
it's just getting the information. Probably refugee claimants don't know that probably we offer those services, or
Right.
other settlement agencies, they don't know that information.
Right.
But now you know, so now you know what to do.
Yeah. No, thank you. Alexandra, is there anything different that Mosaic does?
I would say that we at Mosaic, as well as our subcontracted organizations such as Options, we do offer that piece of immigration and initial settlement support.
Yeah.
So, of course, as Dennis mentioned, things like IFH, MSP, income assistance. I think where the line is drawn, though, would be where it's in best interest of the client to have legal oversight and support.
Yeah.
So things like basis of claim documents or other legal documents, we would refer them to legal aid
Right.
or internal lawyers.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. Okay, so here's another question. Do you think it's a good idea to mix the refugee claimants with other groups like work permit holders? At our organization, we have some troubles mixing the refugee claimants with other immigrants, since there are a lot of stigma around refugee claimants. What would you advise? And do you have any advice on how to get past this challenge?
So in my previous position as an employment specialist, I was actually doing stream A, which I believe that's the contract or the stream the question is from. So we always did events separately. So for example, if we had a workshop, it was only for refugee claimants, or only for international students, or only for temporary foreign workers, because the information might be quite different. And so that way we don't mix any other streams. In stream B, my current position, since I'm only seeing refugee claimants, so there's no problem in that end.
Yeah.
But I don't know, Alexandra, how in Mosaic, if I'm assuming they do the same thing as well. Job fairs. For example, job fairs is something quite different, because the job fairs or hiring events are open for anyone, right? It doesn't matter if it's a visitor or a citizen, PR, refugee claimant, convention refugee, international students. So the hiring events are actually for everyone.
Okay.
But for example, we're having the resource fair next month, and that's only for refugee claimants.
Right.
And we will have employers as well, but it's only for refugee claimants.
Okay, yeah. So sometimes it makes sense to have all groups together.
Yeah.
And sometimes it makes sense to have it more sort of specific to a particular.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Yeah, Alexandra.
And I guess that goes back to, again, thanking our funder, MJTT, for really identifying those unique challenges that refugee claimants are facing.
Right.
So things like the uncertainty or other unique barriers to accessing employment opportunities. I think that's one of the main reasons we tend to do a lot of our programming specifically for refugee claimants, with refugee claimants who may be work permit holders as well, right? So
yeah. Okay, thanks. Okay, so this is going to be our last question. How can we as a sector overcome the stigma of refugee claimants with employers? What are some ways to get buy-in from employers and the community to hire refugee claimants? And Alexandra, your hand went right up, so.
So immediately, my mind goes to one of our partners, which is Inasmuch Community Services Society working in Abbotsford. They've worked tirelessly, and also one of their workers who is Stream B funded is also the co-chair of the MAP BC Information Working Group,
Yes.
which one of their sole purposes is really increasing visibility of the assets that refugee claimants and refugees in general are to the community.
Right.
And they've done a really great job of highlighting ways that refugee claimants are giving back to Abbotsford. And they even have hosted lunches and events such as labeled Why Hire Refugee Claimants, where they invite a wide spectrum of employees in the region to come and talk and listen to both employers share success stories, as well as refugee claimants themselves share what's driven them and made their experience positive. So I think that visibility of refugee claimants is certainly on the rise, and with it comes a responsibility for all of us to really showcase these success stories. And I think this will be a massive, of massive importance moving forward.
Yes, Dennis.
And so, for example, in our Employment Connections Cafe that is continuing this Thursday, we always invite an employer. So Universal Group will come to Mosaic's office, which is where the event is being held. And one of our contacts, which is Sophie, she will come to our office not only to explain about what Universal Group is, what positions they offer, benefits, salary, or the duties, but also to share a little bit, because it's not the first time that they have been hiring refugee claimants. They have hired before in different positions, in general labor, in traffic control, demolition. And so you see, because when I sent her the email inviting her to the event, she was very enthusiastic, very happy to come to our event. So she was open, and there wasn't any stigma about, because she knows that the client already received Canadian workplace culture. They already know about employment standards. They're understanding they pay stuffs or how to do their timesheets. So they already know that they have all those trainings. So there's no stigma around it. So I was telling actually on yesterday the participants from the event that sometimes we had some volunteering opportunities at options, or even practicum students who are in our office volunteering, and they end up probably working at Mosaic. And I was telling them and actually asking them, why do you think Mosaic hired this particular claimant or person when they had volunteer at options? Because one of them, they know, for example, if Alexandra gets a resume that she sees that someone has been volunteering at options, she knows, this person already has some skills, right? And the options already spend some time explaining things to the claimant, or they have bonded with the community, and they have worked with different cultures. They know about workplace culture. So Alexandra says, I don't have to spend time doing this because options already did it, right? So she's ready to hire the claimant. So those are the things that you should actually tell the clients, and I'll stop talking.
No, I think that's a good point. Like just being, job ready, and then doing outreach to employers to come in and see that, the value that refugee claimants bring to the table. Great. Any last thoughts or anything that you wanted to say, Alexandra?
I just say one thing that's part of the mandate of MAP BC, the multi-agency partnership, is really making sure that refugee claimants are protected and that they're supported and integrated well into the community here. And part of that is also supporting service providers as well, and making sure that they feel protected and safe and comfortable, and that they have avenues and pathways to promote the good things that refugee claimants are doing in our community. And I'll say that there's been times that I've met people who are very well respected in the community, and I had no idea that they had a refugee claimant background. And it's really wonderful to see that, well, it's a reality that we all could be faced with this situation.
Yeah.
And that these are just people.
Yeah.
And that they really are massive assets to our community. So again, things like this, thank you for having us to come and speak today. And we appreciate all of the partnerships within the community to really support refugee claimants.
Yeah.
And it's a really positive step forward to make sure that they are recognized for their contribution in the community and given pathways to employment, which is so important for so many different aspects of their lives.
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, thank you both for your time. Just volunteering your time for our webinar training session today. I think everybody learned a lot. You can tell from the questions that people are really eager to learn more. And thank you to all the participants for joining us today. We will be emailing everyone an online evaluation form, so please do take the time to complete it, as we rely on the feedback provided in the evaluations to plan future events and trainings. And again, the BC Refugee Hub would like to gratefully acknowledge the financial support of the province of British Columbia through the Ministry of Jobs, Trade and Technology. And we will be posting the presentations and resources on the BC Refugee Hub website at bcrefugeehub.ca. Bahar will notify everyone via the Hub newsletter. So if you would like to receive this notification, you need to join the newsletter first. Please make sure you do that. Thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful rest of your day.